I secured this $8 million deal single-handedly, Camille announced, her voice carrying across the glittering ballroom. A cascade of applause followed as she adjusted the diamond bracelet on her wrist, basking in adoration from my colleagues. I stood against the far wall, clutching a half-empty champagne flute, watching the woman who hadn't attended a single technical meeting claim 6 months of my work as her own. The adaptive manufacturing solution I'd designed for Anton Ryzhkov's international logistics company had required 3 complete redesigns and countless sleepless nights. Now, Camille, who happened to be married to our division head Trevor, was describing my breakthrough compression algorithm as if she'd sketched it on a napkin over breakfast. When Anton came to us with his challenge, I immediately saw the potential, she continued, somehow managing to make eye contact with every executive in the room. Sometimes you just know when an opportunity is meant for you. My chest tightened as Trevor beamed at his wife with unmistakable pride. 6 months ago, he'd paired us together on this project with the explanation that I would handle the technical side while she managed client relations. What he hadn't mentioned was that she'd claim every innovation as her own. I was contemplating slipping away when the crowd near the entrance parted. Anton Ryzhkov himself, tall and imposing in a tailored suit, walked directly toward me, ignoring Camille entirely. "Leona," he said, his accented voice carrying just enough to turn nearby heads. "At last. I've been looking for you." Camille faltered mid-sentence as Anton reached me, extending his hand. "Thank you for everything," he said, loud enough that the surrounding conversations hushed. "Your technical solution was brilliant. Without you, we wouldn't be working together." Heat crept up my neck as dozens of eyes shifted toward us. Anton turned to face the room, raising his champagne glass. "I'd like to acknowledge the actual architect of this partnership," he announced. "This woman solved problems my team thought impossible. Her compression algorithm alone saved us millions in implementation costs." The silence in the room thickened. Camille's champagne glass trembled visibly. "In fact," Anton continued, "we've been so impressed that we're expanding our initial order by an additional 12 million, contingent on her continued involvement." Conversations halted completely. Trevor's smile had frozen into something rigid and unnatural. Camille's face drained of color before flushing an angry red. She set down her glass with a sharp clink and rushed toward the exit, nearly colliding with a waiter. The room erupted in murmurs. Anton squeezed my shoulder gently. "We should talk soon," he murmured, privately. "Before I continue this story, if you're enjoying it so far, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support means everything, and trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next." The revenge I took wasn't what anyone expected, least of all Camille. My name is Leona Wright. I'm 37, with 15 years of specialized equipment design experience that companies like ours desperately need but rarely appreciate. I'm not naturally confrontational. My strength has always been solving problems that others can't see. Growing up with 4 older brothers taught me to fight differently, strategically, patiently, thinking 3 moves ahead. 6 months before the gala, I joined the Industrial Solutions division after being aggressively recruited from a smaller competitor. Trevor had promised me autonomy and recognition, 2 things I'd lacked at my previous position. "We value innovation here," he told me during my interview. "We reward the people who make things happen." What he'd failed to mention was that his wife Camille had joined the company 3 years earlier with no technical background but remarkable networking skills. She'd quickly risen to head client relations through what office gossip described as aggressive relationship management, and what I later recognized as strategic credit theft. Our division specialized in custom manufacturing solutions for international clients, a perfect match for my background in adaptive systems design. When Anton's company approached us with their logistics challenge, Trevor immediately assigned both Camille and me to the project. "She'll handle the client, you handle the technical details," he explained during our first briefing. Anton's company is our ticket to expanding into Eastern European markets. From the beginning, something felt wrong. Camille insisted on being copied on all communications. She scheduled client calls during her advantageous time slots, often when I was deep in design work. During our first video conference with Anton's team, she introduced me as technical support, rather than lead engineer. The project itself was fascinating. Anton's company needed a system that could adapt to wildly varying manufacturing requirements across multiple facilities. Their existing solution required constant recalibration, costing them millions annually. After our initial meetings, Anton's technical team requested direct sessions with me. Your expertise is exactly what we've been searching for, Anton told me, while Camille smiled tightly beside me. She reluctantly agreed to these technical sessions, but insisted I brief her afterward. Trevor and I need to stay informed about client promises, she explained, though her notes during these briefings focused on my methodology rather than client commitments. As weeks passed, I noticed something disturbing. During management presentations, Camille would describe my solutions with just enough technical language to sound knowledgeable. Trevor would nod approvingly as she explained concepts I'd spent hours teaching her the day before. When I raised concerns during a private meeting with Trevor, his response was chilling. "Leona, you're still proving yourself here," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Camille has built relationships with our executive team that you haven't. Consider this mentorship. She's teaching you how to present to leadership. By presenting my work as her own?" His expression hardened. "That's not what's happening. You're part of a team, and she's representing that team's work. If you're concerned about recognition, perhaps you should focus more on relationship building." The subtext was clear. His wife's position was untouchable. As the project progressed, I noticed something even more alarming. The presentation decks Camille prepared for client meetings contained subtle alterations to my technical specifications. Small changes that wouldn't matter immediately, but would cause catastrophic failures within months of implementation. Changes that would have voided our warranty and cost millions to fix right around bonus season. The first time I caught this, I questioned her directly. "Oh, those must be from my notes," she said dismissively. "Thank goodness you caught them." But it happened again and again, always with the same innocent explanation, always with changes that would ensure the system's eventual failure and my professional ruin. I began keeping meticulous records and backing up my original designs. I started having unofficial conversations with Anton's engineers, building trust while expressing vague concerns about our internal review processes. "Sometimes communication gets complicated," I told them carefully. "I'd appreciate if you'd confirm any specification changes directly with me before implementation." 2 weeks before the company gala, the most unexpected thing happened. Anton's procurement director called me directly. "We're ready to sign," he said, "but we have conditions. We want you as our exclusive point of contact, with quarterly reviews that you personally conduct." "Camille typically handles client relations," I replied cautiously. "We're aware," he said. "This is non-negotiable. Our technical team insists." That evening, Camille called me, her voice honey-sweet. "Anton's team just reached out with final terms," she said. "They're ready to sign. Trevor and I will handle the contract details. You've done wonderful technical work, Leona. We'll make sure you get proper credit internally." I thanked her and asked about the contract specifics. "Don't worry about those details," she laughed. "That's why we have a legal team. Just focus on your technical documentation for the handover." What Camille didn't know was that I'd already spoken with our legal counsel about adding a specific clause to the contract. A clause that would become very important very soon. The night of the gala arrived. Everyone knew the Anton deal would be announced. It was the largest new client our division had secured in years. What no one knew, including Camille, was that the contract contained a special condition. If I left the company for any reason within the first year, Anton's company could either terminate the agreement with minimal penalties or transfer the contract to my new employer. As I watched Camille flee the ballroom after Anton's announcement, I caught Trevor's eye across the room. His expression had transformed from shock to calculating rage. In that moment, I knew exactly what would happen next, and I was counting on it. The Monday following the gala, I arrived at the office early. The usual morning buzz felt different. Conversations hushed as I passed, followed by whispers once I was out of earshot. News of Anton's announcement had spread through the company like wildfire. I settled at my desk, organized my notes for the technical implementation meeting scheduled that afternoon, and waited for the inevitable. At 9:37, Trevor's assistant Martine appeared at my cubicle. "Trevor would like to see you in his office." Her expression gave nothing away, but the slight tremble in her voice did. Trevor's office door was closed, unusual for him. I knocked twice before entering. He sat behind his desk, Camille in the chair beside him. Her eyes were rimmed red, but her posture was rigid with controlled anger. Trevor motioned for me to sit across from them. "We need to discuss your role moving forward," Trevor began without preamble. "Friday night's situation has created complications." I kept my expression neutral. "Which situation are you referring to?" Camille's nostrils flared. "Don't play innocent, Leona. You obviously manipulated Anton behind my back. Manipulated? I maintained my composure. I simply did the technical work as assigned. You crossed boundaries, Trevor interjected. Client relationships are Camille's domain. Whatever you did to convince Anton to make that spectacle, I designed a solution that worked, I interrupted. That's my job. Trevor leaned forward, his voice lowering. Your job is what I say it is. And effective immediately, you're being reassigned to our domestic accounts division. There it was, exactly as I'd anticipated. I'd be removed from the Anton project, buried in smaller accounts, and eventually pushed out entirely. May I ask why? I kept my tone respectfully curious. Team dynamics, Trevor replied smoothly. This project requires seamless communication between technical and client-facing roles. Friday demonstrated that the current arrangement isn't working. Who'll handle the technical implementation for Anton's company? The compression algorithm requires ongoing calibration during the first quarter. We'll bring in Darren from the research team, Camille said, a triumphant edge in her voice. He's been briefed on your documentation. Darren was brilliant but inexperienced, a deliberate choice. They were setting him up to fail, which would validate removing me from the project while providing a scapegoat when problems inevitably arose. I understand, I said quietly. When should I brief Darren? Trevor seemed surprised by my easy acceptance. This afternoon, he'll attend the implementation call with Anton's team. You'll observe only, to ensure a smooth transition. I nodded, stood up, and headed toward the door. And Leona? Camille called after me. In the future, remember that teamwork means supporting your colleagues, not undermining them. The implementation call was scheduled for 2 p.m. At 1:47, my phone rang with an unknown number. Leona Wright speaking. Miss Wright, this is Helena Kovac, General Counsel for Anton Rizhkov's company. Her voice was crisp and precise. Mr. Rizhkov asked me to speak with you directly before your meeting today. My heartbeat quickened. Of course. We've been informed of your reassignment from our account, she continued. This creates a problem with our agreement. I understand your concern. I replied carefully, aware that Trevor might be monitoring my calls. Perhaps we should discuss this during the implementation meeting. That won't be necessary, Helena stated. As per Section 28.3 of our contract, your direct involvement was a conditional term of our agreement. Your company has been notified that we're exercising our option to terminate the contract with the minimal cancellation fee, effective immediately. A wave of satisfaction washed over me, though I kept my voice appropriately concerned. I wasn't aware of that clause. It was inserted by your legal team during final negotiations, Helena said. We actually found it quite forward-thinking. Mr. Rizhkov has asked me to inform you that he would welcome direct communication should your professional situation change. The message couldn't have been clearer. Thank you for letting me know, I replied. I hung up just as Darren approached my desk, looking nervous in his pressed shirt and new tie. Ready for the call? He asked. Before I could answer, Trevor burst out of his office, phone in hand, face contorted with rage. Behind him, Camille stood in the doorway, her expression shifting from confusion to horror. What did you do? Trevor demanded, storming toward me. Heads popped up from cubicles throughout the office. I'm not sure what you mean, I replied evenly. Anton's company just pulled out of the deal, he hissed, lowering his voice as he became aware of the audience. They cited your reassignment as the reason. I maintained a look of surprised concern. That's terrible news. Was there something in the contract about team continuity? Trevor's eyes narrowed dangerously. My office. Now. For the next hour, Trevor alternated between accusing me of sabotage and trying to convince me to call Anton personally to salvage the deal. Camille remained eerily silent, watching me with calculating eyes. I can try reaching out, I offered eventually, but Anton was very specific about wanting me to lead the implementation. Then you'll continue as technical lead, Trevor conceded through gritted teeth. Under what conditions? I asked quietly. Trevor glanced at Camille, whose expression had hardened. The same as before, you'll handle technical details. Camille will manage the client relationship. I shook my head slowly. That arrangement didn't work, Trevor. Anton specifically requested me as primary contact. If you want this deal, those are his terms. You're overstepping, Camille snapped. I'm stating facts, I countered. Call Anton yourself if you don't believe me. The silence that followed told me they already had, and that Anton had been unequivocal about his conditions. Fine, Trevor said finally. You'll be primary contact for technical matters only. All strategic discussions still go through Camille. I pretended to consider this. I'll try explaining that to Anton, but I can't guarantee he'll agree. I left Trevor's office with a promise to call Anton immediately. Instead, I went directly to my desk, gathered my personal items, and typed a brief email to our HR director with my resignation, effective immediately. By 5 p.m., I had cleared out my desk, turned in my badge, and walked out of the building for the last time. By 5:30, Anton was calling my personal number. "Leona," he greeted me warmly. "Helena told me you might be available soon." 2 days later, Trevor left 3 increasingly desperate voicemails on my phone. Anton's company had invoked the contract clause, canceling not just their own $8 million deal, but putting 3 other pending contracts worth $30 million in jeopardy. I didn't return the calls. Instead, I spent the next 8 weeks securing funding, establishing my own technical solutions firm, and carefully recruiting key talent, including Darren, whose reputation had been damaged by association with the failed Anton deal. What Trevor and Camille didn't know, couldn't have known, was that my plan had been in motion from the moment I caught Camille altering my technical specifications. I hadn't just been building a solution for Anton's company. I'd been building an escape route for myself and protection against exactly the kind of sabotage Camille specialized in. The contract clause hadn't been added by our legal team as Helena had claimed. I had personally requested it during a private conversation with Anton after showing him evidence of how the altered specifications would have caused catastrophic failures. "This isn't the first time," I had told him carefully, "but I want it to be the last." Anton, who had built his business on recognizing both technical excellence and corporate treachery, had immediately understood. The clause was his idea, a trap waiting to be sprung. 64 days after leaving my former employer, I sat across from Anton in the conference room of my new office space, signing a revised contract worth $20 million. The original $8 million plus the $12 million expansion he had announced at the Gala. "To successful partnerships," Anton said, raising a glass of Georgian wine he had brought specifically for the occasion. "And to proper attribution," I added, clinking my glass against his. That evening, I received a text from Martine, Trevor's former assistant who had recently joined my company. "Board meeting emergency session tomorrow." T and C both called in. The next morning brought news that sent ripples through the industry. After a closed-door board review of the lost contracts, both Trevor and Camille had been terminated. The official statement cited leadership failures and contract mismanagement, but industry insiders whispered about ethical breaches and client deception. I didn't need to expose their schemes publicly or collect incriminating evidence. I simply needed to create a situation where their own actions would inevitably lead to their downfall. 3 months later, I was reviewing quarterly projections when my assistant interrupted. "Someone here to see you," she said hesitantly. "Camille Harrison. No appointment." My pulse quickened, but I kept my expression neutral. "Send her in." Camille looked different, her designer clothes replaced by a more subdued outfit. Her confidence dimmed, but not extinguished. She stood awkwardly just inside my office door. "Nice place," she said, glancing around. "You've done well for yourself." "What can I help you with, Camille?" I asked, not offering her a seat. She shifted uncomfortably. "I'm looking for work. Consulting opportunities." The audacity was breathtaking. "You want to work for me? After everything?" "I have valuable client relationships," she pressed on. "I know how the industry works." "Yes," I replied softly. "That's precisely the problem." Her facade cracked slightly. "Look, I know we had our differences, but business is business. I've learned from my mistakes." I studied her face, searching for sincerity and finding only desperation. "Trevor and I are divorcing," she added, as if this might sway me. "He blames me for everything that happened." For a moment, I considered the possibility of redemption, of transforming an enemy into an ally. Then I remembered the altered specifications, the countless meetings where she'd claimed my work as her own, the look of calculating rage on her face at the Gala. "I'm afraid there's no position for you here, Camille." Her expression hardened. "You planned this all along, didn't you? You set us up to fail." "No, Camille. You set yourself up to fail the moment you decided that stealing others' work was easier than creating your own." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You haven't heard the last from me. I still have connections in this industry." I smiled slightly. "Are you threatening me? Because that would be unwise." "Why? What else could you possibly do to me?" I walked to my desk and pressed a button on my phone. "Darren, would you join us, please?" Moments later, Darren entered carrying a tablet. He froze when he saw Camille. "Show her Project Phoenix," I instructed. Darren hesitated, then turned the tablet toward Camille. On the screen was a detailed analysis of the altered specifications she had inserted into the Anton presentations, along with projected failure points and financial implications. I never sent this to the board, I told her quietly. I didn't need to, but I keep it as insurance against connections in the industry who might need reminding about professional ethics. The color drained from her face. Without another word, she turned and walked out. Darren looked at me questioningly. She'll be back, you know. People like her always are. Maybe, I conceded. But next time, she'll approach as an equal, not a saboteur. That evening, as I packed up to leave, I received an email from Anton. His company was recommending mine to 2 additional clients, facing similar technical challenges. Your reputation for integrity is spreading, he wrote, as is the cautionary tale of those who crossed you. I smiled as I shut down my computer. The best revenge wasn't destroying Camille and Trevor. It was building something they couldn't tear down, a reputation and a company founded on genuine innovation rather than stolen glory. But the truly satisfying part? Knowing that every time they heard my name or saw my growing success, they would remember exactly how they had engineered their own downfall. 6 months after launching my company, I sat in the glass-walled conference room overlooking the city skyline, watching my team present our quarterly results to the board of investors. Darren, now my lead technical architect, was explaining the proprietary compression algorithm we'd refined since the Anton project, the same algorithm Camille had once claimed as her own creation. We've achieved a 38% improvement in processing efficiency, Darren explained, his confidence having grown exponentially since joining my team. This positions us to tackle even larger manufacturing challenges. Pride swelled in my chest as I observed my hand-picked team. We'd grown from 3 people in a tiny rented office to 27 specialists across 2 floors of prime commercial real estate. Anton's recommendation had indeed opened doors. 3 major international manufacturers had signed contracts with us in the past quarter alone. After the meeting, Nadine, our chief financial officer, lingered behind. The Q3 projections look even better than expected, she said, sliding a folder across the table. We're tracking toward $35 million in annual revenue if the Scandinavian deal closes next month. I flipped through the financial statements, still sometimes surprised by how quickly we'd grown. Any word about the Industry Leadership Awards? I asked. Nadine smiled. Finalists announced next week, but our sources say you're practically guaranteed for Innovator of the Year. Later that afternoon, I was reviewing technical specifications when my assistant Jordan buzzed through. Call on line 2, he said. It's Martine. Martine had declined my job offer, choosing instead to stay at my former company. Through its tumultuous transition, she'd become my occasional source of industry information, though I was careful never to ask for proprietary details. Leona, she said when I picked up, her voice tight with suppressed excitement. Thought you should know. Your former employer is being acquired. My hand stilled on the keyboard. By whom? International conglomerate, moving into the North American market. They're mainly interested in the client portfolio and technical patents. Interesting timing, I mused, thinking of our company's rapid ascent in the same market space. That's not all, Martine continued. Trevor's back. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? The acquisition team brought him on as a consultant for the transition, supposedly for his institutional knowledge. Word is, he's angling for a leadership position in the restructured company. I thanked Martine for the information and hung up, my mind racing. Trevor's return wasn't completely surprising. People like him had a way of landing on their feet, but it complicated matters. If he secured a position with the acquiring company, he'd have resources and motivation to undermine my growing success. That evening, I received an unexpected email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read simply, "We should talk." We should talk. The message contained just a phone number and was signed, C. Camille. I stared at the screen, debating whether to respond. Curiosity won out. I dialed the number. I was hoping you'd call, Camille answered on the second ring, her voice lacking its usual polished edge. What do you want, Camille? Information exchange, she replied. I know Trevor's consulting for your old company's acquisition. What you don't know is he's feeding them intelligence about your operation. My grip tightened on the phone. And why would you tell me this? Because he destroyed my reputation in this industry as thoroughly as he tried to destroy yours, she answered, bitterness evident in her voice. The difference is, you survived. Thrived, actually. You both tried to destroy my career, I reminded her. Yes, she admitted after a pause. I did, and I've had plenty of time to reflect on that mistake. What exactly is Trevor telling them? That your compression algorithm is based on proprietary research conducted while you were employed there. He's suggesting they explore legal options to claim ownership of your core technology. Cold anger spread through me. That's completely false. I know, Camille said. I was there, remember? I know exactly what you developed and when, which is why I'm calling. You want to help me? I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. I want to help myself, she corrected. Trevor walked away with a generous severance and industry connections intact. I got nothing but a ruined reputation and divorce papers. We arranged to meet the following day at a cafe several blocks from my office. I arrived early, selecting a table with clear sightlines to all entrances, a habit I'd developed since starting my company. Camille arrived precisely on time, dressed in a simple blouse and trousers that were a far cry from her former designer wardrobe. The confident swagger was gone, replaced by watchful caution. After ordering coffee, she got straight to business. Trevor kept records of everything, she explained, including messages where he directed me to alter your technical specifications. I raised an eyebrow. You kept those? Insurance, she replied with a hint of her old sharpness. I never thought I'd need it against him, but here we are. She slid a flash drive across the table. Everything's here, emails, text messages, calendar invitations for meetings where he explicitly outlined how to undermine your work without leaving evidence. Why would he document his own unethical behavior? Trevor believes in controlling narratives, Camille explained. He wanted written proof that I was acting under his direction in case things went sideways. His version of a paper trail that protected him while implicating me. I didn't touch the flash drive. And what do you want in exchange? Camille met my gaze directly. A chance to rebuild. Not with your company. I know that door is closed. But a reference, or at minimum, an agreement not to block me if opportunities arise elsewhere. Why should I trust anything from you? She smiled without humor. You shouldn't. Check the files yourself. They're genuine and damning. After our meeting, I had my IT security specialist verify the flash drive's contents before opening any files. What I found was astonishing, not just evidence of Trevor's orchestration of the technical sabotage, but a broader pattern of similar behavior with other employees whose innovations he had systematically claimed for his division. More shocking were emails between Trevor and certain board members dating back years, outlining a deliberate strategy of acquiring technical talent, harvesting their innovations, then pushing them out before they could claim proper credit or compensation. I had been simply the latest target in a long-established pattern. 3 days later, I received a call from Helena Kovac, still general counsel for Anton's company. Miss Wright, I hope you're well, she began formally. Mr. Rizhkov suggested I reach out regarding a sensitive matter. We've been approached by representatives from the company acquiring your former employer. They've made concerning claims about the origins of your technical solutions. Let me guess, I replied. They're suggesting my compression algorithm was developed while I was their employee? Precisely, Helena confirmed. Given our substantial contracts with your firm, we needed to perform due diligence. Mr. Rizhkov remembers quite clearly when and how your algorithm was presented. I appreciate your thoroughness, I said. Would documentation of the algorithm's development timeline be helpful? Extremely. Their representatives were quite insistent, a Mr. Harrison in particular. Trevor, using his former surname despite the divorce. Classic. The next morning, I met with my legal team to review options. The evidence from Camille's flash drive provided a clear counter to Trevor's claims, but using it required careful consideration. Direct confrontation could trigger a lengthy legal battle, my chief counsel advised. Even with this evidence, litigation would drain resources and attention better focused on growing your company. What alternatives do we have? I asked. A more strategic approach, she suggested. One that allows the acquiring company to reach their own conclusions about Mr. Harrison's reliability. We developed a 3-part response. First, we provided Anton's company with comprehensive documentation of my algorithm's development after leaving my previous employer, including date-stamped research notes and early prototype testing results. Second, we prepared a detailed letter addressing the ownership claims, which we sent not to Trevor, but directly to the CEO of the acquiring conglomerate. The letter professionally outlined the timeline of my departure and subsequent innovations, making no accusations but subtly highlighting inconsistencies in any claims to the contrary. Third, and most effective, We invited the acquiring company's technical evaluation team to review our current technology, demonstrating how significantly it had evolved beyond anything I could have developed at my previous position with their limited resources. A week passed with no response. Then, too, I began to wonder if our strategy had failed. Then came the industry gala, the annual celebration of innovation and achievement in manufacturing solutions. Our company had received 4 nominations, including Breakthrough Technology of the Year for our enhanced compression algorithm. I arrived with my leadership team, all of us carefully avoiding the table where representatives from the acquiring company sat. Trevor was among them, looking virtually unchanged from when I'd last seen him. Same confident posture, same calculating gaze as he surveyed the room. Our eyes met briefly across the crowded ballroom. He nodded slightly, his expression revealing nothing. The awards presentation began after dinner. When they announced Breakthrough Technology of the Year, our table erupted in cheers as our company's name was called. I walked to the stage, accepted the crystal trophy, and thanked my incredible team. As I returned to my seat, I noticed Trevor deep in conversation with the CEO of the acquiring company. Their body language suggested tension. The following morning, Martine called. "Trevor's out," she said without preamble. "The acquisition team terminated his consulting contract last night. Any idea why?" I asked, maintaining a neutral tone. Officially, conflicting perspectives on technical assessment. Unofficially, the acquiring company's technical team completed their evaluation of your technology yesterday afternoon. Apparently, they questioned why Trevor had mischaracterized its origins so dramatically. 3 days later, an email arrived from an unfamiliar address at the acquiring company, requesting a meeting to discuss potential collaborative opportunities. The signature belonged to their new director of strategic partnerships, Camille. I smiled as I typed my response, agreeing to the meeting. The industry was too small, the technical talent pool too specialized, for permanent enemies. Better to transform former adversaries into respectful competitors, especially when they'd learned the cost of underestimating you. At our meeting the following week, Camille was professional and direct. The acquiring company wanted to explore partnership options for certain manufacturing sectors where our technologies could be complementary rather than competitive. "You've built something remarkable," she acknowledged as our discussion concluded. "I understand now what I didn't before. True innovation can't be stolen or copied. It comes from vision. And integrity," I added pointedly. She nodded, accepting the implied rebuke. Some lessons are learned the hard way. As we shook hands, I felt the final pieces of my revenge fall perfectly into place. I hadn't just reclaimed my stolen credit or punished those who had wronged me. I'd transformed the entire power dynamic, building a company where innovation was protected and properly attributed, forcing accountability from those who had once seemed untouchable, and eventually bringing even my former adversaries into a new relationship where I set the terms. The most satisfying revenge wasn't destroying Camille and Trevor's careers. It was creating a legacy so undeniable that they had no choice but to acknowledge its value and my role in creating it. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button for more workplace drama and satisfying revenge tales. Leave a comment below with your thoughts. Have you ever had your work stolen or credit taken? How did you handle it? Your experiences might inspire my next story. Until next time, remember, true success is the best revenge.